Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we will be doing our third part of our Reggio Emilia series. So this is part three, the environment and community. We'll be discussing the learning environment through the Reggio Emilia inspiration, some documentation, and also how to embrace community. Again, just a little, like last time, little introduction of myself. My name is Jackie Visman. I'll be leading the webinar today. I am a I used to be a preschool teacher, an early childhood educator, mostly in preschool classrooms, but I also worked in kindergarten and first grade. I then became a school director, all at a Reggio Emilia inspired program in New York City. My school was infant through pre-K. And now I am working with We Schoolhouse, with the similar team as to who I used to work with as an educator, because we grew from our New York City program. But I work now more based on curriculum and helping other educators and parents instill a more Reggio Emilia inspired approach. I'm also now a parent. I have a almost 3-year-old daughter at home, and she definitely hugely widened my lens as someone that works with children. It gave me so much more perspective. So I'm grateful for that experience as well. Very happy to be here today to discuss the learning environment with you and to discuss how to embrace families and community. As I'm sure you have all heard this several times before, but if you haven't, the environment is the third teacher. That is something we hear a lot in the Reggio Emilia world. And so basically, the child has three teachers, right? The parent, the adults, other children, and also the environment. The environment is that third teacher, and it is a place for learning and social interaction. So we touched on this a little bit in the last webinar, how we are social beings and we are dependent on the environment around us, both social and physical, in order to grow and learn and develop. Um, we see the environment as a very integral part of the child's learning experience. We as people develop our senses and our cognitive abilities through the interaction that we have with our environment. So in Reggio Emilia, the town in Italy, teachers even worked alongside architects in building their learning space, considering the learning space to be one that favors this interaction, this exploration, and this learning. And it is charged with stimuli towards that interactive experience and that constructive learning. Loris Malaguzzi encouraged aspects such as transparent walls or windows, a flood of light, continuity of outside and inside, a movement of light, also a movement of activity. And I'll elaborate on all of this and what it means. But the reason why I have this photo here of this piazza in Reggio Emilia is because he even related it to a piazza as a sort of analogy. The learning environment needs to have a social flow, a flow of movement where the children can walk around and linger as they wish. And it's a place that calls for that social interaction and also sort of inspires discovery and inquiry within it. Also, the outside of the school should be considered an extension of the classroom, and utilized as a place for learning and interaction as well. So as we talk about the learning environment, we'll talk heavily about the classroom and indoors, but also we want to encourage you to take trips into the community, to visit landmarks, to discuss the neighborhood or the city that you live within. Um, and uh, and this is why today we're discussing, the learning environment and the community sort of in one webinar. Okay, the learning environment is welcoming, or the environment is welcoming. So just starting from I want you to imagine that you are a visitor coming to a school. Maybe you are a parent looking to enroll your child somewhere. So when you first walk into the school, that's your very first impression. So it's important that the overall school environment is clean and organized. It's light and bright. It's nicely decorated. Um, there's documentations up in the hallway, documentation that showcases, what happens inside this school. What do the children do? Who's here in this environment? Bulletin boards by the entrance of the classrooms for anyone who comes in and out. This is an important piece. You want it to be also well organized. You want it to include things such as the photo and names of the teaching team, the name of the classroom. Maybe you have some special name for each classroom, daily schedule, lesson plans, any special events coming up. This is an important communication piece for the families of your school so that they know what's happening and what's going on. Some key aspects of the classroom environment now. For one, it should be a neutral environment. Natural light and order, and really prioritizing aesthetics. Doing this inspires, it's inspiring, it's calming. Again, it's welcoming for someone who's walking in. It reduces stress and anxiety. That's something that has been shown in studies, that a neutral environment that has that sort of reduced stimuli, that is free of clutter, it reduces stress and anxiety for the people within it, including our children. The reduced sensory overload is calming, and it also enhances information processing and knowledge retention. So it's also going to benefit their learning when they have this reduced stimuli. It also allows for the children's work to stand out, because we are going to talk about documentation a bit, and we want to make sure that documentation that we put up on the walls, or any other important visuals or pieces of communication, we want them to be visible. And in order to do that, we need to have a neutral backdrop. So some tips in order to create this: you want to limit the color. You want to use neutral tones. You want to limit those sort of digital graphic charts, such as color, shape, number, word, letter, emotion charts. They're very passive, and they do easily create clutter, and they can distract. In order for the children to discover such things like shapes and numbers and letters and emotions, you can create those charts with them. There are other ways of doing so. And it will become more relevant to them in that experience. You want to keep the windows clear from decoration, although sometimes it is very nice to hang documentation up on your windows, but you want to keep it, again, orderly as possible, because the windows are an important piece. If you're lucky enough to have big windows in your classrooms, we really want to welcome that natural light into the classroom, and also that opportunity to view the outside world for the child. There's so much that they will be able to take in and learn just from being able to look out the window. You also want to store materials in neutral bins. So if you can imagine, many classrooms have those really brightly colored bins, rainbow colors all around. But we want less of that. We want more neutral colored bins to store our materials, because what's important? Is it the bin inside that the materials are in, or is it the material themselves, right? We want those important pieces to be visible. We also want to incorporate more natural and calming elements wherever applicable. So like warm lights, plants, soft neutral linens, natural artifacts. You can have fun with this. You can use fairy lights. You can use a lot of, I know a lot of teachers love to go antiquing and thrift shopping to buy sorts of older wooden and metal-based pieces of furniture and other things to hang in their classroom, utilize in the classroom. Another really important aspect to the environment is that transparency and movement. So remember that, kind of like the piazza where there's movement throughout. You can do this with the use of mirrors. The windows help with it. You can hang old CDs and play around with lighting in that way. You also want to have open accessibility to the different play areas and the materials so the children can move around as they please. Movement between indoors and outdoors, you want to prioritize. So definitely make sure that outdoor play and exploration is incorporated into your daily schedule as much as possible, but also consider how can you bring the outdoors inside. You can do this by using natural materials, pine cones, seashells, fresh flowers. All of this invites interaction, all of that movement, the play with light, the windows, the incorporation of the outdoors. It invites interaction. Authentic materials. You want authentic materials in your classroom as well. So thinking about real items, metal pots and pans and wooden spoons and wicker baskets and plants, living things, natural materials. And you want the children to have access to them. You want them to you want to remember that they are capable and competent, right? Have plants within their reach so they can water them themselves. All materials within their reach. And you want these spaces to be very thoughtfully arranged and well-defined. Well-organized and thoughtfully decorated classrooms, such as this, I love this dramatic play center right here in this middle image. It's so beautifully created. It's very home-like. It's very aesthetically pleasing. It has materials there and that are accessible for the children. Images, the mirror, thoughtfully decorated classrooms with accessible materials and interactive displays lead to more positive behaviors in children. They increase engagement. They increase task-related behavior compared to those in more cluttered and less thoughtfully arranged spaces. And you want ever-evolving and changing environments. You want your environment to be flexible and specific to the children. You want to be able to encourage new exploration as you update your play areas and the visuals that you have up on your walls and the documentation you have on your walls. You want to update it regularly in line with the children's interests, what you're learning at the time, what you're seeing that they need. You want to change out the materials the play materials based on the needs of your children. Continuously reflecting and revising. In order to act as an educator for the child, the environment has to be flexible. It must undergo frequent modification by the children and teachers in order to remain up to date and responsive to their needs to be protagonists in constructing their knowledge. Um, so the environment also always needs to reflect the children, their learning and their community. Again, be welcoming with the bulletin board, offer the documentation, um, um, and as much as your physical space allows, invite interaction and flow of light and sight. Also, in whichever way you can make sure that your environment is indicative of the children's work and activity and collaboration. Um, so what we have here, the images I've provided for you here, are to show some preschool children who are literally involved in the creation of their centers and their environment based on what they're learning. So in the first two images, um, these children in their classroom, their dramatic play center, um, was an airplane based on the investigation that they were undergoing at the time. And so they created the airplane together, painting and cutting out the different shapes required to construct the airplane together and gluing it all together and putting it up into their dramatic play area, which you can see it behind them right here, so that they can then engage in play around this concept. And here we have children who are, they're learning about owls. And so they're creating documentation and visuals in their classroom about what they're learning. And you can see it's child made, it's child led. They're involved in the creation of their learning environment. So it's reflective of their learning and the children in such a literal way. And lastly, always remember that the environment reflects the values of Reggio Emilia. So it's cozy and it's welcoming. It's connected to home. There should always be photos, family photos that the children can access when they need to, when they want to. This is always such a wonderful piece in the classroom because when they feel like they miss their family, they can go to their family photo, or even just out of moments of joy, they can share their family photo with their friends. They look at their friends' families, they talk about it. It is such an important piece. Um, you also want to make sure, again, there's that encouragement of movement. So even indoors, especially for younger years, and we'll talk about that, you want opportunity for gross motor. The easel even is a great way for that in a preschool classroom, play up on an upright platform. You also, so that whole body movement. You also want autonomy of play, so that freedom to move within and out of the different play centers, and access to the materials, that freedom of access to the materials, because again, we're remembering that the children are capable and competent, and we want to treat them as so. We also want our environment to reflect positive relationships. We're nurturing positive relationships and that collaboration, and however possible, reflect or extend into the community outside of the classroom. So the neighborhood or the city, wherever it is that you live, you want to reflect that in your environment as well. There can be images of the places, the buildings around you in your block center. You can bring it into your emergent curriculum. You can bring it in, you can do an investigation, but you want to bring that inspiration from outside in. So let's look at, just briefly, let's look at classrooms for different ages. I know a lot of you ask often, especially about infant toddler. So your infant classroom is going to be very routine oriented. There's going to be routines of feeding and napping and diapering. And so you want to make sure that your classroom is available for these routines, and that these stations for these routines are clean and orderly and organized. Labels on, on bins where the babies individual supplies are, their bottles, their diapers. This is so important just for hygiene purposes, health and hygiene purposes. So you really want that organized clearly and neatly. That also is going to be important for your aesthetics. You want it to be, again, an uncluttered environment. Just ready for all those motions throughout the day. Also, the important in the infant room is that routine for the sense of stability. They need consistent routine. That's how they learn, and it's how they gain a sense of security. Babies also thrive in a soothing environment and a very sensory oriented environment. So again, you want those neutral tones. You want it to be not so cluttered. You also want opportunities for floor play and different sensory opportunities for movement as the babies are starting to crawl and pull themselves up. You want low shelving that is safe for them to pull themselves up on. If find a way to encourage their crawling. Crawling ramps are so cool. If you can get a ramp like this one for your classroom. Toys on wheels, discovery baskets. You want to have them out on the floor and accessible for the babies to explore. Soft rugs and pillows are also excellent to have. Mirrors are very important. You can lay a mirror on the floor or have it up on the wall. You want that opportunity for exploration and for movement. Toddler classroom, also very routine oriented. Also, you want it to be calming. Again, we really don't want our toddlers to become overstimulated. We know what happens when that happens. We want them to also have a sense of security in those consistent routines. So soothing environment, neutral tones, and sensory oriented and engaging. So you will see in a toddler classroom a sort of emergence of more centers. So you might have a sensory center with a nice water table. A great thing to do in your toddler classroom is utilize that wall space. You can put paper up and let them paint or make marks on the paper. You might also want to incorporate some baby dolls, a little baby doll center. You can have a small block center. So they're starting to now understand like an orderly environment. It will get messy. So have that appropriate expectation, but you can start, in incorporating some centers now in a toddler classroom. And again, really catering to those sensory needs and those needs for movement. And a preschool classroom. So of course, in a preschool classroom, we now have more centers. It's a little bit more sophisticated in that aspect, right? We have a dramatic play center. We have a whole block center, art and writing and science and discovery, and a meeting area where you might do a little morning meeting or some group time, a library and cozy corner. There's a lot more going on in a preschool classroom. You'll have more interactive charts up in your classroom as well. And again, as much as possible, make sure those charts really reflect the children and are there for them to interact with, and they can even create it on along with you. Everything should be very clearly labeled as well in a preschool classroom to help the children learn their order, because part of what they're learning, right, is how to care for their environment. Where does everything belong? So when they clean up after play, they know, because the shelves are labeled with images and text, they know where to put things away. I do want to look just a little bit at preschool centers. I want to share some examples. I find often that this is really helpful for teachers to really kind of take the centers center by center, the play area by area, and see what can you do with it. So for example, we have a dramatic play area, which oftentimes we see is a kitchen. It can also be a baby area. It's very reflective of home and life that they are familiar with. Um, Something that, some things you might want to consider are incorporating plants and cleaning supplies to kind of give them that sense of responsibility and that care of self and that care of environment. Um, you can also incorporate things like I love here, they incorporate the clock, they incorporate a cookbook and an opportunity for play with that emergent reading and writing. There's a phone, so you really see that there's opportunities for play with not just social uh, parts of life, but also pre-writing and early mathematical skills. And then here I love this because I want to show you that uh, the dramatic play area, similar to the children who are creating their airplane, it's not limited to kitchen and babies, but as you go through investigations throughout the year, you can get really creative with it. And so here, these children have created a ship. And they've used cardboard boxes and they worked on it together. And this is their dramatic play. Block Center is also one that I really love for its opportunity for creativity. Um, but some points I really want to make here is one, your block center should be well organized with labels, so to help the children clean up in an orderly fashion when they're done, and they also know where to find everything that they may want or need. Also having visuals for inspiration, those are provocations up on the wall and on the shelves to inspire their work as they build. I also encourage you to utilize animal figures, natural materials, fabrics, loose parts, all sorts of loose parts in your block center to really expand upon what they can do and what they can build. Here we have children creating and building with things like upcycled plastic dishes and old plant pots. A lot of this donated from the families, um, which the families love to do, by the way, send in, otherwise tossed old toys and old bits and pieces that can be incorporated into your loose parts. And here we have children from my memory. They were creating a forest, working together to create a forest here. And I think this was supposed to be Greece with the blue. So, incorporating other loose parts in your block center is just such a great way for them to get more creative and to expand on, what they're exploring as they build. We also have library and cozy corner, which sometimes are combined into one space. This is a really great place for some pillows, soft animals. You want this to be a quiet space, a calm space, a space a child can go to read, but also just to regulate themselves. But if they ever feel tired or a little bit overstimulated, they can come here, they can calm down, they can feel cozy. So you might want to play with some lighting, some drapery, get a really soft rug in there. Make sure that your library shelf is neat and the books are displayed so the children can see them. Sometimes having a plant in the cozy area is also really helpful. And then we also have, and often we'll have a discovery center or a science center. This is a great area to incorporate different STEM concepts. So also a great area to bring the outside in, quite literally, because you might bring natural materials into your discovery center for the children to explore. In this image, they had actually found a caterpillar outside and they brought him in and watched him form a chrysalis, and the children got to observe that whole process. And then here, there's all sorts of natural loose parts for the children to explore with. You might have a sensory bin, again, with more natural materials, but also an opportunity to observe fruits and vegetables and plants. They're measuring a pumpkin, they're counting coffee beans, all different ways to incorporate those STEM concepts in this area, and also really just inspire that exploration and that inquiry for the children. Art center, you want to have a large array of or options for different mediums of art. A lot of preschools like to color coordinate for that sense of orderliness. I love that there's a book incorporated here to inspire art, to inspire the children's art and expression. Everything is well organized, so the children know where it goes, and they also have options to choose from. Here as well, they have a provocation up to inspire. They've included loose parts and natural materials. So you want to have, again, that choice there for them. As we discussed in our last webinar, how important choice is for their 100 languages. So now that we've looked at the classroom environment, I do want to get into documentation. This is such a important part of Reggio Emilia, of the Reggio Emilia approach, and it's such a beautiful part. I love how much it really wows the families of schools when they come in and they really see the beautiful documentation up on display. There's a lot that we can discuss around documentation. Documentation is the observation and reflection and analysis by teachers of the children's play and work and development. We can discuss how to document. As we have in our previous webinars, we did go over jotting down informal notes, really making those objective observations, writing down anecdotes, recording children's dialogue. You can physically write it with a pen and paper. You can take video and audio recordings. You can take pictures. However, you can collect the children's artwork. However you collect the documentation, these are so important. These artifacts are so important for your reflection, for your assessment of the children. And it is a long process, especially if you're documenting a large investigation and a long piece of project work. The documentation in itself is such a process. Every day jotting down notes on various children and kind of gathering them all to find this over this arch of their learning and what has unfolded over this time. So that's all very important. What I want to go into more deeply here, though, is what we do with it then, as far as the documentation panel and the display that we put up, and how we do it and why we do it. They are very purposeful. And I'm including it in our discussion of the environment and the community today because it's such a major way in which those two come together. So why do we create documentation panels? For one, it makes the work and the learning and the development visible. It makes it visible to the child and to the families. And if displayed publicly, it makes the important work of the school visible to the larger community, advocating for the work of early childhood education and all the amazing things that the teachers and the children do, the beauty of it. It celebrates their work in that way as well. It celebrates the learning that is unfolding at the school. And it engages the family. It engages them. And the greater community. Again, if it's public, it engages them in the happenings of the school, and it invites a discourse on the children's progress and learning. Some components of a documentation panel can be a title for the project. This here is a self-portrait, right? The designers, that's the classroom title, the designer's self-portraits. It can be children's artwork, although it doesn't always involve artifacts of children's artwork, but that can be a component. Children's writing samples, pictures of the children engaging in a project, a description of the project, the steps to the process and the learning outcomes. So all here you see that the teacher has prepared a description of what they did and what unfolded throughout the process, and what the children gain from this experience. There'll be anecdotal notes, and even the children's dialogue transcribed. So, for example, in something like this self-portrait project, the children were invited to make a self-portrait with just a pen or a pencil on paper, likely with a mirror propped up in front of them, or potentially with a mirror. And the teacher will, write down what the child says. What is their thinking out loud as they work on their self-portrait. And then they might revisit and this time do a painting on canvas. And then again, jot down what is the child saying out loud as they create this self-portrait. And then and you can do this multiple times. Here pictured, it looks like they only did it twice, but you can do this multiple times throughout the year and then put it all in a chronological order, so you can see how has this large project unfolded over time, and what growth do we see in the children through the evidence of their self-portrait and their dialogue that's been recorded, any other anecdotes that's been recorded. It's such beautiful log of this learning, and the families get to come in and see it. And again, if you can, and if you make it public in some way, the community gets to see the amazing work that has come. You can also, have fun with it and get crafty, get creative. So here we have, and also just to show some more components. So the title is Lemons, and the children learned all about lemons. I think this is a twos classroom. They learned all about lemons. They smelled the lemons, they tasted the lemons, they cut the lemons, and they felt what the lemons feel like. And they got to draw the lemons, and the teachers took notes on what they were saying. And then hung them all up with photos of the children engaging in these experiences, their artwork, their drawings of the lemons, their dialogue, and the description of what happened through the teacher's words. And she got crafty and creative and hung the lemons up as well. So really, really beautiful for the families to come in and see, this overarching experience, this long project of all the steps that are involved in exploring lemons. Some tips for your display. So we want it to be aesthetically pleasing. We want to place it where it is visible. We want to use clear print that's large enough to see and read. We want it to be neat and orderly. We want to prioritize symmetry, so even spacing, even the panels with images and text are of the same size. There's symmetry in the way it's been hung and laid out. There's even some symmetry in the way the names are placed on the artwork. We want to use neutral tones and neutral backing. So everything's backed with a black border. This is a great way to sort of frame the documentation. You can use framing in that way, where you back the documentation on maybe a black cardstock. You can also, if you're printing something, you can use programs like canva.com and put little frames around it. You want it to really be treated like almost, I think I mentioned this in a previous webinar, you want it to almost feel like a art gallery. Right? You have a description of the art. What's the history of the art? What's the history of this project that we're looking at, and the importance and the meaning behind it. And it's all hung in a way that is visible for the eye. You also want to update it regularly. So this might be up for a month, but what else has happened since? So, let's update our documentation, keep the community looped into how things are changing and what new things are unfolding. This is just another example. This is an example of documentation that's minimal on the child's work itself, as far as product, physical product, but it does showcase a whole experience of a whole clothing study. There's pictures of everything they did around exploring clothes, visiting clothing stores and a laundromat, and bringing clothes in from home into the classroom to care for, to wash, creating their own clothes, learning how to thread, all these different experiences photographed and documented in the form of anecdotal notes, in the form of transcribed dialogue, and then put together in this beautiful display for families to come in and to see and to awe over. And this is another self-portrait study where the children first drew their self-portrait, they're photographed doing so, there's dialogue transcribed, and then they got to revisit that activity utilizing loose parts. And that whole process has been documented over time. Oh, I love this one as well, because this is now an example of the children taking part in their environment, right? The documentation is part of the environment. It's there for us to see and to experience. Us being the children, the staff, the families, all of us are there to reflect on this learning. And here, the children are actually creating documentation themselves. Lily is documenting, I think they were documenting the space of the school, and they were documenting their learning environment. And so, and labeling where everything is, and what the meanings of the different spaces are. And so Lily drew a picture of where the strollers go and explained this sign is where the big strollers go in the back. And Alicia drew a picture of the Wanderers classroom, the babies classroom, and explains that this is where the babies play. So I loved this example as well. And it's both, right? It's the documentation and it's the work in one, the learning in one. I really loved it. So now engaging the families. So now we're going to move on to engaging the families, and starting with how documentation does so, and how really prioritizing our environment in this welcoming way and reflecting the learning in the environment, how that engages the families. For one, documentation can be interactive, right? They come in, they look at it with their child, they read all about it. I've also seen documentation where they got to write, the parents were invited to write their thoughts on sticky notes, and they got to stick it up on the documentation. So they get to be involved in the documentation there. You can hold events for viewing, right? Bring all the families in, have a gallery walk or an art show throughout the halls. You can also document family events. So if you have maybe there's a holiday and you invite the family in to have a little holiday party, you can document that and create documentation around that. You can also make documentation digital. So I know generally we discuss documentation in the form of what we hang on the wall, but there is also, you can also, in addition, you can have a weekly journal so that you send home to the families. So it's a way to engage and reach the families, documentation. Some more photos of a family viewing event. You know, it really is a beautiful thing to see the children showing their family, oh, this is my work, and look at all the things we did, and they're so proud, and the families are proud too. And embracing the families. So this is really important. And you know, I'll say when I started teaching and working in early childhood education, I did so for the love and the respect of children. And through my work, I also realized the immense reward there is in working with the families and embracing the families and really making that connection with parents as partners. Um, First and foremost, at the beginning of the school year, you need to learn about each and every family in your classroom. A lot of schools will send home surveys, right? A survey to complete so that we can learn about you. This is important to do. And if you haven't done it if at some point in your school year, you realize that you haven't done the survey or you want to learn more, just do it. Go ahead and do it. It's never too late. You can ask questions such as, you know, what are the dynamics of your family? And what values do you hold in your family? What do you want for your child? What languages do you speak? What ethnicity are you? And what holidays do you celebrate? How do you prefer we communicate with you? Is there anything important for the school to know about your family and culture? These are important questions to ask and important things to explore so that you have a fuller understanding, a deeper understanding of how to connect with these families. And you also want to have frequent communication. So always have that open line of communication with families. And don't, you know, be afraid to ask them questions about their family and welcome their questions as well. We are working together in a partnership, and we need to constantly nurture that partnership. You want to schedule regular parent-teacher conferences as well, and again, other family events. Welcome them into the school, welcome them to come together, plan for these things. You can welcome them to come in, have them sign up for a day to do a read aloud or just to come play in the classroom with their child. You can ask them if anyone wants to have any cultural shares. You know, I included this image here. It's not so clear, but just to let you know what's happening is this girl has a bunch of photos that her family had shared with the teacher of they were from Colombia. And so these are photos of her and her family in Colombia, and she's sharing them with her friends. And you know, it's really beautiful to see that share between the children. You know, sharing cultures as well. Here, this child was part Indian, and so we got to celebrate some of her culture in the classroom. And you do this in partnership with the parents. See what they're happy to share, and engage that in your learning environment. Remember that engaging the families, seeing what they have to share, it's only going to enrich your emergent curriculum. All right, and now going beyond and embracing the greater community. We encourage you to go on neighborhood walks and outings, and learn about the surroundings. Are there any special places to visit and learn about? Is there a nearby landmark or farm or library or park that you can go to? Have the children experience these places, and let them make their own observations, ask their own questions. You can do a whole investigation, a whole long project on your neighborhood. Here we have children that did a whole project on New York City because they lived in New York City, and they were able to create the buildings and create the parks using clay and boxes, and they created this whole mural themselves. And there's so much to be learned just from what we have around us. And it's important for the children to have that sense of belonging in their neighborhood, to know that they are part of something. Also give them the opportunity to be involved in their community. So consider ways that the children can play a role or contribute. Maybe they can make art for a local store, a gift for a local store, write letters, donate something. Maybe you can do a donation, again, get a donation drive, get the families involved in that, talk about what they're doing, why they're giving old clothes away. Give them a sense of responsibility and purpose. So I will, take this opportunity now to hear your questions. I also want to thank you again for coming. If there's anyone here today that needs a certificate of attendance for professional development purposes, you can get that at We Schoolhouse store right here. You'll see that this webinar is listed there, and you can get the certification at the store. Also, we have some upcoming events. Next week, we are hosting a We Schoolhouse virtual open house. That's on Wednesday, June 12th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will take that time. It's free to attend, and we will take that time to show you who We Schoolhouse is, our team, how we came to be, our whole story, what our mission is, and everything that we have to offer in the form of resources for early childhood educators, for teachers, administrators, school owners, also for families, for parents, or any guardians that are in a home setting with young children. We would love to have the opportunity to show you what we're all about, what our mission is. So if you would like to check that out, please register. Again, it'll be free to attend, and it will be recorded as well. If you register, you'll get that recording. And our next webinar, due to popular demand, is going to be on STEAM in early childhood. So ways to dive into and explore all sorts of STEAM concepts for infancy through age 6. And that will be held on Wednesday, July 17th, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I am happy to now take questions. Okay. Could you give examples on how to apply and implement the approach for upper grades? I will be working with 3rd graders in an after-school Reggio-inspired program. We have been doing discovery centers that include provocations, open-ended questions, and did you know facts. Any ideas would be appreciated. I mean, definitely something you can do. I love that you are already including different sorts of open-ended provocations and questions. I assume, in relation to, the concepts you are exploring. I would say continue in doing that. If you, I would say other concepts as far as, relative to the environment. You want to, again, utilize those open-ended materials, have images, real images in relation to your whatever concepts you are learning about with them, up for them. Have them even be involved in creating different charts and posters or murals about the concepts you are exploring. Have bring the outside in or go outside to see if there's a way to explore the concept tangibly. So, if it's a concept such as uh, like a grocery store, you can go to a or food, you can go to a grocery store and learn about, what foods are there and the whole idea of maybe purchasing, and then you can incorporate money and how to they can make a list, they can make grocery lists and then go try to find the groceries on their list. They, try to make it tangible, like a real life experience for them. I'm pulling an example out of thin air, um, you want them to, you want them to experience what it is that they're learning about. And that can absolutely be done in a hands-on way in later grades as well. I am notoriously bad at keeping plants alive. So am I. What kinds of plants would you recommend in the classroom that are easy to take care of? This is a fun question. Snake plants, I believe they're called, are really easy. Goodness, I hope I'm not going to mispronounce this. Um, Bromeliads, they are like sort of tropical plants that grow, I think, on like forest floors, so they don't need too much light. And as long as you just like water it every now and then. Um, I would recommend I think it's called a Christmas cactus. It's a cactus that's very easy to keep alive. Um, Succulents are a little easier. I hope that helps. Advice on keeping the environment uncluttered. We have so many materials for our children to explore and for our teachers to use. Where do you put it all to keep the classroom looking neat and aesthetically pleasing? Yeah, this is, honestly, this is a challenge. And I remember facing this challenge as a teacher too. And admittedly, my cabinets, if you open the cabinet doors, it was embarrassing. You, I would say, as best you can, develop a system with clear labels and bins. If you can utilize, I don't know what kind of shelving you have as far as storage goes for items that you maybe aren't using currently in the classroom, but you might have your rotation materials. So if you need to, like, maybe use some nice fabrics to cover it, if you can hide it behind some fabrics, and just, invest in some good bins that, are stackable and storable to put things away. And again, labeling everything, so you always know where to place things and it's easy to place them there. It's clear as to where it goes. And this is something you can involve the children in. They can take on that sense of responsibility in their environment. In the labeling, they can, if they're capable, they can even label the things themselves if they're younger and they can't. But if it's, labeled with text, but also a picture of the item, then the children know, oh, it goes there, and let that be a part of their learning. And you can work together a little bit in line with them on organizing your space. Please elaborate on writing. So I wonder if you mean opportunities for pre-writing in the classroom. So yeah, for preschool, kindergarten, there's so many ways to exercise this skill in all areas of the classroom. So I mean, obviously in art and writing, there's that, but also, in dramatic plays, we saw have a cookbook, have, some crayons and some paper out for them to write up their own recipes, or if they're playing restaurant, maybe they're making a list of somebody's order. In the block center too, you can have paper and writing utensils available for tracing the blocks, or you can wrap the blocks in paper and have them decorate the blocks. Even just coloring and drawing is a way to practice those pre-writing skills, because they need to first, develop that fine motor and that representation on paper. There's so many ways of doing it. Get them involved in creating the charts in your classroom. And welcome, I always say welcome invented spelling. That's okay. That's such a huge, a wonderful way for them to explore, phonetics. And I've seen really beautiful writing skills evolve from just invented spelling. I would love to see an example of the description of the project that is posted. I'm not sure which one you mean. I don't know which project you mean, but if you want to type that in, and I'll see if it comes up later, the project specifically that you're asking about. So someone is asking, please share if you have set themes per which students can learn. So if you go to weschoolhouse.com, our program comes with several units of investigation that you can utilize and dive into. It's a really great platform for finding such inspiration if you're not really sure what investigations to get into with your children and all the different ways to explore it and how to get creative with it. We offer so many ideas. So definitely check that out. How do you balance the process of documentation, taking photos, recording dialogue, etc., with the importance of being in the moment with the children? I feel so disconnected from the experience itself when I'm just focusing on taking pictures. I love this question because I empathize as a former teacher. I know the struggle. I utilized audio recordings a lot in my note taking so that it was like super quick. I would, talk into my phone and put it down, but still be present with the children. Also recognize that it's okay to step back and observe and not be like ultra present at all moments. Even just sitting beside them, you are still present for them. So it's okay if you have moments where you're a little quieter and you're letting the children just be in their moment, almost like without your influence. That there's an importance to that as well. So welcome those moments and don't feel that you're not being present enough. In your observation, you are still an active participant. So recognize that. I continue to be concerned about children with neurodiversities and cannot initiate ideas. Do you have a place in this model? So what I love about Reggio Emilia is that it is so flexible. You can apply this approach in so many ways for truly any kind of learner. But it will be dependent on the individual child and what their needs are specifically. And so I always say, I always encourage if the child is working with any therapist, if you have that, which is such a beautiful thing to have, if the child is working with speech therapist or occupational therapist, physical therapist, just make sure you are in communication with them, and that you work in partnership with them. Same goes for the family, right? The family knows the child so well. You learn so much from them. They know what the child needs first and foremost. So make sure you also work in partnership with the family. This is why nurturing that relationship is so important. You also want to gain the family's trust. So, you want them to be able to open up to you. You want to be a good listener for the family. And also to be able to communicate with the family what you're observing. as far as, what the child's needs are and how you can reach those needs within this flexible model. Hi, can you repeat some of the questions you could ask, please? Could you repeat some of the questions? Yes. Okay. And also, yeah, I will repeat them because they're not in the slide, but I can also see if I can share something with you guys in text. But so some of the questions, and this is just some examples, but some of the questions that you might want to ask a family in like a beginning of the school year survey are, what values do they have in their family? What is important to them? What do they want for their child, right? Long term, what do they want for their child to learn, and how do they, what do they prioritize in their child's development? What languages do they speak? What ethnicity do they identify with? What holidays do they celebrate? How do they prefer that we communicate with them? I hope I'm going slow enough. I'm not going too fast. Again, what values do they have? What do they want for their child? What languages do they speak? What ethnicity do they identify with? What holidays do they celebrate? How do they prefer to be communicated with? Is there anything, this is one that I always include, is there anything that they feel is important for the school to know about their family and their culture? This one is very open-ended, but some families will have something important that they feel that they need to share that is important for you to know. Okay, an example of this regarding holidays and ethnicity and culture. There are some cultures, and I've had families in my classrooms in the past who they don't celebrate Halloween. They actually really don't appreciate Halloween, which I'm in the United States. That's such a huge event in the United States. And this is why starting that communication, like right from the beginning of the school year, Halloween is at the end of October, so it's fairly early in the school year. You need to have a relationship. You need to learn who your families are, and you need to plan. If you have a family that they really don't want their child involved in any kind of any kind of Halloween activity, you will need to be sensitive to that. And you'll have to plan with the family. How do we navigate this? It's really important that we are culturally responsive in such a way. So that's an example, but you want to learn really about these families and what's important to them. How do you balance authenticity of children's learning and their created artifacts with beautifying documentation for display? So, as long as your observations are objective, right? And so therefore your note taking and what you share in the documentation is objective, meaning it's anecdotal. You're not imposing any of your own thoughts or opinions into it. You literally transcribe their dialogue as it was said. And you're obviously you're taking real photographs and you're utilizing real artifacts of the children's work. No matter how, yes, you're going to display it as beautifully as you can, but it's still very authentic to the children's learning. So I would say that that's how you balance it. Would you recommend waiting to set up the home corner until you know the demographic of your class? I'm conscious of having a homogenized home corner. Is it really fair to children whose homes may not be set up that way? This is a great thing to consider, and I really appreciate that you are considering this. Should we promote having familiar cooking instruments, food, and furniture? So this is why it's so wonderful to have opportunities for getting to know you at the beginning of the school year. I know I mentioned the survey, but you can also schedule sort of open house events at the beginning of the school year, meet and greets at the beginning of the school year. So the more you can learn about your family and what their home looks like, the more you can incorporate that into your center or into your learning environment. I also always welcome families to send in recipes or cookbooks or like empty spice jars that are from their kitchen. Obviously, all allergies considered. You first and foremost, you always want to prioritize health and safety. But it's such a and photographs from within their home. You can hang that in your kitchen center or throughout any center, dramatic play center blocks. And yeah, any way you can get creative and consider reflecting all the different families and homes of your classroom and talk about it. Talk about those differences with the kids. They love talking about what their family does and learning about what their friends' families do. Let it be a part of that communal learning and how they share. It's so great. How can we extend the Reggio way at home? Yeah, so you can definitely. I personally have been working on trying to be better or finding ways to document for my daughter at home, hanging her artwork along with pictures of her creating it. You can also, in your child's play spaces at home, you can play with different kinds of lighting, utilizing soft tones, different kinds of fabric and pillows. There's so much you can incorporate in the home that we discussed today in a classroom environment. And then also getting out of the home and going outdoors and bringing those experiences into the home, taking photographs with your child and, letting them make decisions on what photographs get put up in the home. Yeah, there's so many ways of doing this. I would we Schoolhouse also has a home platform where we offer resources specifically for incorporating Reggio Emilia at home. So if you want to learn further about this and you want some more guidance, definitely check it out. Is there a catalog of different provocations? Yes, we have so many. Oh my goodness, we have so many. Please check out weschoolhouse.com. Check out weschoolhousestore.com. We have loads of ideas for you as far as investigations and provocations and different activities go. Um, okay, is there a literacy or numeracy center in Reggio Emilia inspired environment? Yeah, so I would say literacy and numeracy can be incorporated in every center in so many ways, so many. I mean, I had in my preschool center, in my preschool classroom, a art and writing center. So there was writing quite literally incorporated into that specific center for my 4K classroom. Nothing forced, but just there as an invitation. But you can also incorporate writing, as I said earlier, into dramatic play. You can incorporate it into blocks. If as long as you have the invitation there in any center, the writing utensil and the paper. If you have text, right, there's text in your labels and the visuals that you have visible throughout the centers. Those are also provocations. Books are a provocation. Have a book in every center. And then also for mathematical concepts, you can do the same. Again, we saw for an example in this webinar, there was an image of a dramatic play center that had a phone and a clock. You can also, in dramatic play, you can maybe, some dramatic play centers will have a shop where you have play money. In a discovery center, you can do measurement. You can have counting activities. I mean, you can incorporate this through play anywhere in your classroom. Are there any person at We Schoolhouse bilingual? I'm thinking of other educators who speak Spanish, Portuguese, and other languages different than English. It will be great if they can have, yeah. I agree. And we are working towards having our program available in more languages. Yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. It's something that we want to have available in the future for sure. How long do you expend on a study that keep 3 years old children engaged? So this really is going to depend on the group or the child that you have and the investigation, and you follow their lead. If they are, losing, if you see that their engagement is being lost, reevaluate what you might need to do differently. If you need to explore, sort of organically move into a new investigation, that's fine. Or, reevaluate a different way of presenting the investigation that keeps their interest. I've seen investigations go on for a month. I've seen 2 months. I've seen several months. It really depends on, again, on the children that you have and all the different ways that you kind of take apart and investigate a certain concept with them. I'm a home-based FCC provider with a smaller space. I serve children from 18 months to 6 years. What suggestions would you have for incorporating as many Reggio-inspired provocations as possible without making our environment feel cluttered? Wow, that's a challenge. You have a lot of differentiation there in a small space. Ooh, I would be so curious to know more about your space. Um, so it's hard to give concrete examples, but I would say, um, if you can segregate your space in any way so that there's like a safe area for the toddlers, and then also because there's different materials available for an older child versus a younger child, that if you might want your 6-year-olds utilizing pencils and things, but you don't want the toddler to do so. Although I suppose you have your supervision there. So you want to consider where are you placing the different materials, and within whose reach are they? And also, how do you set up your materials so that the toddlers are invited for you know, for that gross motor play that they need, that sensory play that they need. I guess you'll have to think deeply about the placement of your materials. There's also a lot of, concepts within the Reggio Emilia environment that, go across all age groups, right? So, the incorporation of that movement, that transparency, so playing with the light, having also neutral, in a neutral environment, having cozy areas. So that would apply to all age groups. Yeah. I've been working in a Reggio school for almost a year now. I want to say these webinars have been very helpful in bringing it all together for me. Oh, I'm so glad. That makes me very happy. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for sharing it. Early childhood is up to 3rd grade, isn't it? That might depend on where you are. for my training, it's through second grade. Or through age 6 or 7. So it might, but yeah, I mean, yeah. I would say, depending on the age of the child, third grade could be included. Yes. We have a new preschool building that is very narrow hall, still regulation. But okay, how do you suggest conducting an art show or gallery in a tight space? We won't be able to have all families see the work. Okay. So I had a similar conundrum during COVID because we had to social distance. So what we did is we had the parents sign up for, I think it was like 10 minute or 5 to 10 minute time slots. And they would come in small groups in this sort of um, this train of viewing where they waited outside. Hopefully the weather where you are welcomes that. But they waited outside and they took turns coming in and viewing the documentation according to their time slot. So that could be something you consider. Um, um, When do you usually change or rotate material? So you can do this, again, following the children's lead as far as their engagement and their interests develop as you move through an investigation, as you're monitoring their development. So you're seeing what new challenges they may need or what things they may need to revisit. So there's a lot of reasons why you rotate your materials and when you do so. Um, you know, usually you want materials out for at least a few weeks though to for true exposure, at least. Okay, someone's asking about scribble and correct formation of letters if it's important. So, this comes with practice. This skill comes with practice. And the more that a child is exposed to text, seeing letter formation around them in books, on the walls, in their environment, the more that they get to explore it. Also, you can explore letter formation in so many ways beyond just writing, right? You can trace in sand, you can create letters with loose parts. All of these experiences will, through play and through this, it'll engage them better in exploring formation. And you can use their body, they can use their whole body to form letters. And then over time, the more exposure they have to this, the more exploration they have to this, and also the more they practice it freely, right? Without us forcing them, but just they get to practice it through their play as they wish to, and as their fine motor skills strengthen, and as their control of writing utensils strengthens, you'll see that letter formation and writing legibility improves. It will. And also you might need to consider things like, if they, the utensil that they're using, they might need a thicker pencil, or you might want to, stick with pencils, see, what their grip is telling you. How many children in a class in this setting usually? That is also going to depend on your area, where you're located, because there will be regulations by your local Department of Health on how many children will fit in like a given space. Like the size of your school, the size of your classroom will determine how many children you're allowed to have. That really is dependent on those things. How can I relate family documentation to teaching cultural awareness to toddlers? So I think at the toddler age, the best way to teach into cultural awareness is truly just to celebrate um, the cultures within your classroom and that they are exposed to, just exposing them. You can read books about it. You can, invite the families in. You're not really teaching into it so much as you're just celebrating what is familiar to them through through the children and exposing their friends to it. Um, how long should you? Oh, we already got that question. Okay, I think that's all our questions. Wow. Okay. Um, Thank you again so much, everyone, for coming. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to us at info@weschoolhouse.com. Please check out our website, check out our store, and we'll send you links. Please, please, please join our We Schoolhouse virtual open house next week so you can learn more about us. And I also really hope that you join us for our next webinar on July 17th, which will be focusing on STEAM concepts in early childhood. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.